The Republicans rode a wave of anger into power in 2010. That anger is fueled primarily by the economy and the failure for the Obama administration to reduce unemployment, to stage a housing recovery from the depression in the market, and to contain healthcare costs. Okay, so there's some failures, but those failures are not strictly the fault of the Democrats. I could place some Democrats as being at fault, but not the whole of the Democratic Party. Mostly it's the Republicans who did everything in their power to resist, obstruct, and sabotage any attempt at improving the economy. They took the stimulus bill and they insisted on having huge chunks of that being applied as tax cuts. Now, every economist at the time was saying that tax cuts are completely ineffective as stimulus. Okay? But they didn't listen. They didn't want any of that. It was all supply side economics with them. For trying to contain healthcare costs, the whole healthcare bill was taken over by the private health insurance industry, who basically wrote the legislation for them. Okay? What we actually needed was to eliminate the entire private health insurance industry because it serves no useful purpose. None. All it does is add cost. It adds cost, paperwork, and it's done nothing to improve health care in this country, period. We should have a government single-payer health insurance program that would have been run at cost, not for profit and not for innovating in new ways of cheating people out of their claims and increasing paperwork. All right. For the housing depression, Wall Street got theirs, but when it came to homeowners, they got no relief at all. They got foreclosed and they had to declare bankruptcy. They got no relief at all for having bought into a market that was going to burst. You know, the big banks, they got theirs. They got their bailout, but you know, as far as homeowners, they got zilch. Okay, they got stuck with it. So, you know, moral hazard only seems to apply if you're an individual. If you're a corporation, don't have to worry about moral hazard because we'll bail you out. All right. So the Republicans are primarily responsible for the bad economic conditions. You know, even during the Reagan and Bush years, their policies for under-regulating and their crony capitalism has created the conditions that created the housing bubble burst, and for the root cause of the current recession, which is eroding wages over the past 3 decades. The rich have been getting richer and have been garnering all the gains from productivity over the past 3 decades. Labor has been stifled, okay, and their gains have been eroding over time. All right, and that's the principal cause for the recession we have right now. There's too much money at the top, and the top are too busy gambling amongst themselves. You know, at the height of the housing crisis, there was on the order of $9 trillion in the housing market, and there's $62 trillion in derivatives, money gambling on the outcome of the housing market. Okay, so you can see that only a fraction of the money that we bestow upon the wealthy makes it into the actual economy that circulates through the hands of people who work for a living. Okay, so trickle down does not work. Trickle down does not work at all. You know, in order for us to have an effective stimulus program, we also have to review our trade policy, in particular with trading partners like China, where the relationship is not reciprocal, where they get to sell goods to us, but it's very difficult for us to sell goods into their markets. And we have to review a lot of things. We have to review labor laws, and in particular, what the Republican governors have been doing in trying to strip public workers of their rights to organize. And with even modest gains in the private sector with unemployment, we've got steady cuts that are happening with the public sector. Because when the Republicans got into power, they got into power under the framework that they were going to create jobs. Well, they didn't create jobs. The minute they gained power, they forgot about jobs completely, and their obsession became the deficit and about cutting spending and cutting government. And when you cut the job of a government employee, that still counts as unemployment. So unemployment has not budged in this country, because even with modest gains in the private sector, the public sector has seen nothing but steady cuts, okay? Because Republicans refuse to raise taxes, refuse to cooperate in trying to bring this economy around. They don't care. The wealthy have all the money and all the power they could ever possibly want. Why should they change any of the rules now? Why should they care about anyone else but themselves? Okay? They can gamble amongst themselves, take all that extra money and gamble amongst themselves. They don't have to circulate it in the economy if they don't want to. Okay? And they're not. It's plain and simple. All right? If you want a healthy economy, you have to think about circulation. You have to think about how money is going to circulate through the hands of people who work for a living. Okay? So I don't know if $1 trillion is the right number for a jobs program, but we do need a jobs program. We need a stimulus package, and we need to do things that are going to create the economic conditions for people to go back to work. And it's not by pandering to the quote-unquote job creators who have all the wealth, all the power, and apparently none of the responsibility. None of the responsibility. Because they're not creating jobs. Now they're claiming they can't create jobs because there's too much quote-unquote uncertainty. There was a time when we thought that the wealthy deserved the interest they got on their money when they had money working for them because of the quote-unquote risks they were taking, and now they're refusing to invest in jobs because of the quote-unquote uncertainty. That's bullshit. That's a lame excuse. It's a lame excuse fed to you with the hope that you'll buy it. because there's always uncertainty. There will never be certainty in the economy. And they're more than willing to gamble, but they're only gambling amongst themselves. Okay? They're not investing in production because they don't want to build products that no one is going to buy. And as long as the lower classes in this country do not receive an adequate wage, and as long as they can no longer borrow against assets they no longer have, there's going to be no market. There's going to be no market, and there's going to be no more jobs. Okay? And they know this. They talk about uncertainty. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's not about uncertainty. There's a certainty that if they build product that it's not going to sell. Plain and simple. Okay? So we need a jobs program. I don't know if $1 trillion is the right number. It's got to be more than just throwing money at the problem, though, because we need to rethink our trade policy. We need to rethink our banking policy. We need to rethink a lot of things that are taken as status quo in this country, that have driven this country into the economic condition it's in now. Okay, the people in power are not in the position to fix diddly squat. Okay, they created the problems we have now. They are not in the position to fix them. So that's all I'm going to say for now.